equipment somewhere and sold it. I think he'll wait till he's fairly sure the other ship is finished. Then he'll come in and shoot the place up, the way—" He bit off that abruptly. "The way he did my wedding. I think of it all the time." The next morning, he and Harkiman took an air car and went to look at the city at the forks of the river. It was completely new, in the sense that it had been built since the collapse of Federation civilization and the loss of civilized technologies. It was huddled on a long, irregularly triangular mound, evidently to raise it above flood level. Generations of labor must have gone into it. To the eyes of a civilization using contragravity and powered equipment, it wasn't at all impressive. 50 to 100 men with adequate equipment could have gotten the thing up in a summer. It was only by forcing himself to think in terms of spadeful after spadeful of earth, cartload after cartload creaking behind straining beasts, timber after timber cut with axes and dressed with adzes, stone after stone and brick after brick, that he could appreciate it. They even had it walled, with a palisade of tree trunks behind which earth and rocks had been banked, and along the river were docks, at which boats were moored. The locals simply called it Trade Town. As they approached, a big gong began booming, and a white puff of smoke was followed by the thud of a signal gun. The boats, long canoe-like craft and round-bowed, many-oared barges, put out hastily into the river. Through binoculars they could see people scattering from the surrounding fields, driving cattle ahead of them. By the time they were over the city, nobody was in sight. They seemed to have developed a pretty fair air raid warning system in the 1900-odd hours in which they had been exposed to the figurative mercies of Boak Valkenhayn and Garvin Spasso. It hadn't saved them entirely. A section of the city had been burned, and there were evidences of shelling. Light, chemical explosive stuff. This city was too good a cow for even those two to kill before the milking was over. They circled slowly over it at 1,000 feet. When they turned away, black smoke began rising from what might have been pottery works or brick kilns on the outskirts. Something resinous had evidently been fed to the fires. Other columns of black smoke began rising across the countryside on both sides of the river. "You know, these people are civilized, if you don't limit the term to contragravity and nuclear energy," Harkiman said. "They have gunpowder, for one thing, and I can think of some rather impressive old Terran civilizations that didn't have that much. They have an organized society, and anybody who has that is starting toward civilization. I hate to think of what'll happen to this planet if Spasso and Valkenhayn stay here long. Might be a good thing in the long run. Good things in the long run are often tough while they're happening. I know what'll happen to Spasso and Valkenhayn, though. They'll start decivilizing themselves. They'll stay here for a while, and when they need something they can't take from the locals, they'll go chicken stealing after it. But most of the time, they'll stay here, lording it over their slaves, and finally their ships will wear out and they won't be able to fix them. Then, sometime the locals'll jump them when they aren't watching and wipe them out. But in the meantime, the locals'll learn a lot from them." They turned the air car west again along the river. They looked at a few villages. One or two dated from the Federation period. They had been plantations before whatever it was had happened. More had been built within the past 5 centuries. A couple had recently been destroyed, in punishment for the crime of self-defense. "You know," he said at length, "I'm going to do everybody a favor. I'm going to let Spasso and Valkenhayn persuade me to take this planet away from them." Harkiman, who was piloting, turned sharply. "You crazy or something?" "When somebody makes a statement you don't understand, don't tell him he's crazy. Ask him what he means. Who said that?" "On target," Harkiman grinned. "What do you mean, Lord Trask?" "I can't catch Dunnan by pursuit. I'll have to get him by interception. You know the source of that quotation, too. This looks to me like a good place to intercept him. When he learns I have a base here, he'll hit it sooner or later. And even if he doesn't, we can pick up more information on him, when ships start coming in here, than we would batting around all over the old Federation." Harkonnen considered for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, if we could set up a base like Nergal or Zot-Chital," he agreed. "There'll be 4 or 5 ships, space Vikings, traders, Gilgameshers and so on either of those planets all the time. If we had the cargo Dunnan took to space in the Enterprise, we could start a base like that. But we haven't anything near what we need, and you know what Spaso and Valkenhayn have. We can get it from Graham. As it stands, the investors in the Tanith adventure, from Duke Angus down, lost everything they put into it. If they're willing to throw some good money after bad, they can get it back, and a handsome profit to boot. And there ought to be planets above the rowboat and ox-cart level not too far away, that could be rated for a lot of things we'd need." "That's right. I know of half a dozen within 500 light-years. They won't be the kind Spaso and Valkenhayn are in the habit of raiding, though. And besides machinery, we can get gold, and valuable merchandise that could be sold on Graham. And if we could make a go of it, you'd go farther hunting Dunnan by sitting here on Tanith than by going looking for him. That was the way we used to hunt marsh pigs on Kolata, when I was a kid. Just find a good place, and sit down and wait." They had Valkenhayn and Spaso aboard the Nemesis for dinner. It didn't take much guiding to keep the conversation on the subject of Tanith and its resources, advantages, and possibilities. Finally, when they had reached brandy and coffee, Trask said idly, "I believe, together, we could really make something out of this planet." "That's what we've been telling you all along," Spaso broke in eagerly. "This is a wonderful planet." "It could be. All it has now is possibilities. We'd need a spaceport for one thing." "Well, what's this here?" Valkenhayn wanted to know. "It was a spaceport," Harkonnen told him. "It could be one again. And we'd need a shipyard, capable of any kind of heavy repair work. Capable of building a complete ship, in fact. I never saw a ship come into a Viking base planet, with any kind of a cargo worth dickering over, that hadn't taken some damage in getting it. Prince Victor of Zot-Chital makes a good half of his money on ship repairs, and so do Nicky Gratham on Jaganath, and the Everards on Hoth. And engine works, hyperdrive, normal space, and pseudograv," Trask added. "And a steel mill, and a collapsed matter plant, and robotic equipment works, and—" "Oh, that's out of all reason!" Valkenhayn cried. "It would take 20 trips with a ship the size of this one to get all that stuff here. And how'd we ever be able to pay for it?" "That's the sort of base Duke Angus of Wardshaven planned. The Enterprise, practically a duplicate of the Nemesis, carried everything that would be needed to get it started, when she was pirated." "When she was—" "Now you're going to have to tell the gentleman the truth," Harkonnen chuckled. "I intend to." He laid his cigar down, sipped some of his brandy, and explained about Duke Angus' Tanith adventure. It was part of a larger plan. Angus wanted to gain economic supremacy for Wardshaven to forward his political ambitions. It was, however, an entirely practical business proposition. I was opposed to it, because I thought it would be too good a proposition for Tanith and work to the disadvantage of the home planet in the end. He told them about the Enterprise and the cargo of industrial and construction equipment she carried, and then told them how Andre Dunnan had pirated her. That wouldn't have annoyed me at all. I had no money invested in the project. What did annoy me, to put it mildly, was that just before he took the ship out, Dunnan shot up my wedding, wounded me and my father-in-law, and killed the lady to whom I had been married for less than half an hour. I fitted out this ship at my own expense, took on Captain Harkonnen, who had been left without a command when the Enterprise was pirated, and came out here to hunt Dunnan down and kill him. I believe that I can do that best by establishing